This land belongs to your sister now. My father's voice boomed across the fields as he climbed into his tractor. She actually knows what to do with it. My name is Olivia Parker, and I watched in stunned silence as my father began destroying the organic crops I'd spent 2 years cultivating. Tomorrow was supposed to be my farm's grand opening, the culmination of everything I'd worked for since graduating from agricultural college. The morning had started normally enough. I was up before dawn, checking on my prized heirloom tomatoes and the rare varieties of vegetables I'd carefully nurtured using traditional farming methods passed down by my grandmother. The soil here was special. Everyone in the valley knew that. Grandma used to say it had its own wisdom, its own way of choosing its caretaker. Then my parents showed up with my younger sister Amanda in tow. I should have known something was wrong when I saw Amanda wearing her designer boots to walk through farmland. "We need to discuss the farm's future," Mom had said, her voice carrying that fake sweetness I'd grown to dread. "Amanda's finished her business degree, and she has wonderful plans for this place." I stood my ground, dirt still fresh under my fingernails from morning harvesting. "This is my farm. Grandma left it to me." Only because she didn't know Amanda would study agricultural business. Dad shot back. "Your sister has real plans. Corporate contracts, modern farming methods. Not this organic nonsense you're wasting time on." Amanda smirked, tapping something on her tablet. "I've already got buyers lined up. Major supermarket chains. They want volume, not these weird heritage vegetables you're growing. We'll need to clear everything and start fresh." "No," I said firmly, thinking of my grandmother's lessons about respecting the land. "This farm stays organic. It's what the soil needs." That's when Dad lost it. "Soil needs? Listen to yourself. Your sister has an actual business degree. She knows how to make this land profitable." He stormed off toward his tractor, parked at the edge of my property. I hadn't even noticed he brought it. Now I stood watching as he plowed under my carefully tended rows of vegetables. 2 years of work, destroyed in minutes. Mom kept trying to convince me this was for the best, while Amanda rattled off statistics about commercial farming profits. "Just sign the transfer papers," Mom pleaded, waving a document folder. "Your sister knows what she's doing. You can stay on and help if you want." Help? On my own farm. The farm Grandma had specifically left to me because I shared her vision of sustainable agriculture. I remembered her words from the day she showed me the deed. "This land knows its true keeper, Olivia. Trust in that." I watched as Dad made another destructive pass with the tractor, tears stinging my eyes but refusing to fall. The rich, dark soil turned over, exposing its underbelly to the sun. But something caught my eye, a glint of green where the earth had been disturbed. "This is pointless," Amanda declared, checking her perfect manicure. "The papers are drawn up. Dad's on the board of the Agricultural Commission. We can force a transfer if we have to. You're not qualified to run this farm." I knelt down, touching the freshly turned earth. The soil felt warm, alive under my fingers. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, though the sky was clear. "Are you even listening?" Mom demanded. "This is happening whether you like it or not. Your sister has investors waiting." I stood up slowly, dirt crumbling through my fingers. "You can destroy my crops," I said quietly, a strange calm settling over me. "You can threaten me with legal action. But this land, it has its own way of choosing." Dad shut off the tractor, looking triumphant. "Stop with the cryptic nonsense. This isn't one of your grandmother's fairy tales. This is business." I looked at my ruined fields, remembering all the nights I'd spent studying Grandma's farming journals, learning the secrets she'd discovered about this particular plot of land. The special properties of the soil, the unusual growing patterns, the way certain plants thrived here when they wouldn't grow anywhere else in the valley. "You should have waited," I said, still eerily calm. "The soil remembers. Grandma always said that." "Oh, for heaven's sake," Amanda scoffed. "I'll have a proper farming team here by next week. We'll show you what real agriculture looks like." Thunder rolled again, closer now, though the sky remained perfectly clear. I felt the vibration under my feet, subtle but unmistakable. The soil was warm, almost hot, against my bare toes. "You've made your point," I said, turning away from my family. "Now please leave. The land needs to rest." "We're not done here," Dad shouted after me. "You will sign those papers." But I was already walking toward my grandmother's old farmhouse, her words echoing in my mind. "The soil chooses its keeper, dear one. and once it chooses, heaven help anyone who tries to interfere. Behind me, I heard my family's angry voices fade, replaced by the sound of wind in the trees and that strange, distant thunder. Tomorrow was supposed to be my grand opening. Instead, my crops lay ruined, turned under by my father's anger and my sister's ambition. But as I reached the porch, I felt another tremor under my feet, and I smiled. Because I knew something they didn't, something Grandma had taught me of the special soil and its mysterious ways of protecting its chosen guardian. The real show hadn't even started yet. 3 days after my father destroyed my crops, something extraordinary began to happen. I woke up to find tiny green shoots pushing through the ravaged soil, not just in a few places, but everywhere the tractor had torn through my fields. These weren't the random weeds my sister Amanda had smugly predicted. These were my heirloom vegetables growing at an impossible rate. "This is impossible," Amanda declared when she showed up with her agricultural expert a week later. "These plants can't be growing already." The soil was completely turned over. I stood at the edge of my field, watching her expensive boots sink into the rich earth. The expert she brought, a man in a crisp suit who'd clearly never worked a day of actual farming in his life, kept consulting his tablet with a bewildered expression. "According to standard growing patterns," he muttered, "these vegetables shouldn't be sprouting for weeks, let alone showing this kind of growth." The tomato plants were already knee-high, their stems thick and healthy. My rare purple carrots were pushing up through the soil, their tops an almost luminescent green. Even my prized heritage corn was returning, stronger than before. "It's this soil," I said simply, kneeling to run my fingers through the dark earth. "It has its own way of doing things." Amanda's face turned red with frustration. "Stop with the mystical farmer act. This is clearly some kind of trick. You must have replanted everything." "With what resources?" I asked calmly. "You've frozen my accounts, remember? Called all my suppliers to cancel my orders? The soil is doing this on its own." The expert wandered deeper into the field, his confusion growing with each step. "These growth patterns are unprecedented," he admitted, shooting worried glances at Amanda. "And the soil composition. I've never seen anything like it." I remembered Grandma's warnings about the land's special properties, how it responded to those who respected its natural rhythms and how it rejected those who tried to force their will upon it. The expert's readings were just confirming what she'd always known. 2 weeks later, my fields were flourishing beyond anyone's expectations. The vegetables weren't just growing, they were thriving, producing bigger, more vibrant crops than I'd ever seen. Word spread quickly through the farming community, and soon local media started showing up to document the miracle farm. My parents tried to maintain control of the situation. Dad made calls to his contacts at the Agricultural Commission, demanding investigations into my farming practices. Mom attempted to smooth things over with the media, trying to spin it as a family success story with Amanda as the mastermind. But the soil had other ideas. Every time Amanda tried to implement her modern farming methods, whether it was chemical fertilizers or industrial equipment, the land rejected them. Machinery would mysteriously malfunction. Synthetic fertilizers would wash away in rains that somehow only fell on the exact areas where they'd been applied. "This is ridiculous," Amanda shrieked one morning after her third attempt to bring in a commercial farming team had ended with their equipment stuck in suddenly muddy ground, despite no rain for weeks. "You're sabotaging us." I was harvesting tomatoes that had grown to the size of softballs, their colors so vivid they almost glowed. "I haven't done anything," I replied truthfully. "The land knows what it wants." The local farmers market couldn't get enough of my produce. Restaurants in the city started calling, begging for my vegetables. Even organic certification inspectors were amazed by the purity and vitality of my crops. My sister's corporate contracts began falling through as news spread about the farm's unusual properties. No major chain wanted to be associated with what they couldn't explain or control. Amanda's carefully crafted business plan was crumbling, just like the expensive machinery she kept trying to bring onto the property. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset paint my thriving fields in gold, Dad's truck came rumbling up the drive. He got out looking older than I'd ever seen him, his face lined with worry and defeat. "The Agricultural Commission wants to study your farming methods," he said without preamble. "They're calling it a breakthrough in organic agriculture. Amanda's investors have all pulled out." I nodded, waiting for him to continue. "Your grandmother," he hesitated, looking out over the flourishing crops. She tried to tell me about this land years ago, about why she left it specifically to you. I didn't listen. Thunder rolled in the distance, though the sky was clear, just like that day when he destroyed my crops. The soil hummed with energy beneath our feet, a gentle reminder of its power. The land chooses its keeper, I said softly, repeating Grandma's words. And once it chooses, heaven help anyone who tries to interfere. Dad nodded slowly, finally understanding what he was up against. This wasn't just about property rights or business plans. This was about something deeper, something that couldn't be controlled by legal documents or corporate strategies. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across my miraculous fields, and I smiled. The soil had made its choice clear to everyone. And this was just the beginning. 6 months after my father's failed attempt to destroy my farm, I stood in my field surrounded by photographers from National Geographic. They'd come to document what they were calling the miracle of Parker Farm. My heirloom vegetables had not only recovered but were now producing yields that defied all agricultural logic. It's remarkable, the lead researcher said, examining a tomato plant heavy with fruit. The soil composition here is unlike anything we've ever studied. It's almost as if it's adapting. I caught sight of Amanda watching from the edge of the property, her designer clothes replaced by a simple sundress. The past months had changed her too. After her business plans collapsed, she'd been forced to reevaluate everything she thought she knew about success. Miss Parker, one of the photographers called out, "Could you explain your farming methods? How do you achieve these results?" Before I could answer, Amanda stepped forward. "She listens to the land," my sister said quietly, something I should have done from the beginning. The transformation in my family had been gradual but profound. It started with Mom, who came by one morning with Grandma's old recipe box, filled with handwritten notes about the farm's special properties. "I found this in the attic," she'd said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your grandmother tried to explain about this place, about why it had to be you. We were too focused on modern progress to understand." The recipe box contained more than just farming advice. Between the pages, Grandma had tucked away newspaper clippings dating back decades, documenting similar miraculous growth patterns on the land, but only under the care of certain family members who followed her traditional methods. Dad took longer to come around. His pride had taken a heavy hit when the Agricultural Commission not only dismissed his complaints but also started using my farm as a case study in sustainable agriculture. But one evening, I found him sitting quietly in Grandma's old rocking chair on the porch. "Your plants," he said, gesturing to the thriving fields, "they're the same varieties your grandmother used to grow, aren't they?" I nodded, settling into the chair beside him. "She used to tell me the soil here was special," he continued, his voice rough with emotion. "Said it had been in her family for generations, that it knew who belonged here. I thought it was just stories." The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the abundant fields. In the fading light, the vegetables seemed to glow with an inner vitality that no commercial farm could match. "I was wrong, Olivia," Dad finally admitted. "About everything." The success of Parker Farm spread far beyond our valley. Organic farming associations sought my advice, universities requested research access, and sustainable agriculture programs sent their students to learn. But the soil's mysterious properties remained consistent. It only performed its miracles for those who respected its natural rhythms. Amanda's transformation was perhaps the most surprising. After her investors abandoned her, she spent weeks sitting at the edge of the fields, watching me work. At first, I thought she was plotting something new, but then I noticed her taking notes, asking questions about Grandma's methods. "I don't expect to take over anymore," she said one day, helping me harvest a row of impossibly perfect carrots. "But maybe you could teach me, the way Grandma taught you." The soil seemed to hum with approval as I showed her how to feel for the right planting depth, how to listen to what the earth needed. Her business degree wasn't wasted. She eventually helped me develop a sustainable model for distributing our produce while maintaining the farm's traditional methods. Today, as the National Geographic team wrapped up their photo shoot, I watched my family gathering on the porch. Mom was arranging fresh vegetables for dinner. Dad was explaining Grandma's crop rotation system to one of the researchers, and Amanda was carefully tending to new seedlings in the greenhouse. "Your grandmother would be proud," a voice said behind me. It was Mrs. Henderson, our elderly neighbor who'd known Grandma all her life. She always said this land had a way of teaching people what really matters. I looked out over my flourishing fields, remembering that terrible day when Dad had tried to destroy everything. The soil had done more than just restore my crops, it had restored my family. Later that evening, as we sat down to a dinner made entirely from the farm's produce, I noticed something had changed in our family dynamic. The competitive tension that had always existed between Amanda and me had transformed into mutual respect. Mom's controlling nature had softened into genuine interest in our traditional farming methods. Dad's obsession with modern progress had given way to a deep appreciation for the old ways. To the land, Amanda proposed, raising her glass, and to the sister who knew how to listen to it. As we toasted, I felt the familiar warm hum of the soil beneath our feet, like a heartbeat synchronizing our family in a way no business plan or legal document ever could. Grandma had been right all along. The land knew its keeper, and in choosing me, it had healed more than just the earth.